can see the chat on 2 screens, so if some messages come through on others and not others, I can see them. But yeah, so that says upcoming here. Shouldn't be upcoming. I should be live. Yeah, there we go. So it's live now. So the GMC 800 just came, the other one, because like I said, I've already got one, but that's the one I put Rad Pro on. So this is the one I'm going to keep for not Rad Pro, so I can do a proper review of it as it is, you know, out the box. So I'll open that up in a second, but like I said, let me get the stream settings correct on the PC. Because as I always keep saying, why can't YouTube just do a thing where your settings are saved across the 2 platforms? So if you stream on PC, it's always the same as if you stream on phone. But no, apparently that's too hard for Google to do. Oh, and I see somebody's liked already. All right, Rajiv, hope you're all right. So yeah, we're going to open this now. It's actually not wrapped up, which is a bit of a disappointment. I mean, maybe they don't shrink wrap these, but you know, but yeah, this looks like it's obviously completely undone. You know, like not been messed with in here. So a decent USB-C charge cable. I'm going to keep that in the box. And here we go. We've got the actual GMC 800 there, the little radiation card they give you. So let's put that down, and let's hope it's got a bit of charge already. This live? Yes, this is live, John. Yeah, it is live, as you can see. I am talking to you now. It's a normal one. So yeah, let's have a look then at this. So like I said, I've already got one of these. But I didn't do a proper review of it. I don't think like a decent length review before I put the Rad Pro software on, which is like third-party firmware, and then you can't roll it back. So this one I'm going to keep. So you get a little thing with a loop there and about loop for it, because I did see a review of this where some guy was complaining, oh, it's not got like carry lanyard bits on the Geiger counter. It's like, yeah, because it's designed to go in a carry case. You know, if you're lemon tea sounds nice. Yeah. Right, so anyway, let's open this. So, yeah, like I said, that's just a basic protective thing. Like I said, you get the cards with the radiation recommendations on them. As in, like, you know, if it's 0.03 microsieverts to 0.33 microsieverts, that's normal background, no action needed. If it's 0.33 to 0.65 medium level, check the readings regularly. And then when it gets to 13 microsieverts an hour plus, extremely high, evacuate immediately, report to government. And so this is a company based in Washington, based in Seattle. So anyway, let's get the counter out. So yeah, there we go. It's all good. It's still got the protective thing on the screen, so it hasn't been messed with. Yeah, and it's powering up. And we'll compare it in a minute to the other one. So there we go. Like saying, so what I did like on this one, though I said it's a shame when you change it to Rad Pro, is that you don't get the coloured like thing anymore. So let's change it from CPM to microsieverts. So you can do milli-Rontgen easily. So let's just press down there. Yeah, so you go. There's the microsieverts one. So that's that there. And we'll irradiate it in a second to test it's working all right. I'll take the screen protector off now. I don't need that one. So yeah, that's about what I'd expect the reading to be sat here, because over that side of the room, I've got some very weak radioactive rocks. On that shelf to my right, I've got things like the aircraft dial. And you can already hear that that's noticing that I've got this in my hand here. Yes, that seems to be working perfectly. You can press the button to acknowledge the alarm. So yeah, good. That seems to all be good. So like I said, the difference between this one and my other one is this one is still the stock factory things. And like I said, I'd still I'd actually recommend to people not to put Rad Pro on it, because while I like Rad Pro, like I said, the problem with Rad Pro is once you put it on there, you can't actually take it back off. As in, like, the factory firmware isn't, you know, like kind of restartable on it. So while on the cheaper counters that's fine, on a decent counter you kind of want to be able to go back to factory with it. So I assume it will have the same. Oh, it's actually got a better battery in this one. Like, it's actually got a sticker on it rather than just having a bit of writing on the side of the battery. So that's better. Otherwise they'll look the same. So this uses a Chinese GM tube in it, Geiger Müller tube. And that is under that bit there where it says sort of sensor. So that's where the GM tube sits in it. And yeah, it's the standard Chinese one that's in nearly all the Chinese logo banner in the background. What for the room? The problem is I couldn't get it to stay up anywhere. But yeah. So yeah, like I said, that that's both of those. Funnily enough, the actual like number on them, I guess, is just the barcode for the product, because that's not a serial number, because they're the same like both. But as you can see, both of them are giving very similar readings, which is good. Yeah, but then I have to put it over the Soviet poster I've got that's slightly fallen down, and that was quite expensive, that Soviet poster. So yeah, what functions do we have on here on the default one? Because I can't remember. So graphic, that's where it shows you like a log of what you've been exposed to. Dosimeter, that's the accumulative dose since you last reset it. So, you know, how much radiation you've actually been exposed to in total, not your active rate of radiation. History, again, that's like another one we can see where it went really high for a bit when I was testing the radium dial. Main menu, and that's where you can check, turn the clicks on and off, change the alarm thresholds and all the stuff like that. I think set the time because the time's wrong. The date's correct, but the time's wrong because it's at 05:39 AM. So it's exactly the right time. I'm going to look up what the time is at the moment in Washington State. Seattle time now. 05:40. So yeah, it's on Seattle time because the company's based in Seattle. So let's change the thing to, and you can change the theme. So, oh yeah, oh nice, I don't remember this being on my one. I might have put on dark, but bright orange is quite nice. So let's have it on bright orange, so it's like orange and sort of yellow and black, kind of very aliens looking on the thing there. There isn't just bright yellow, because that would be the perfect one, so it would look like the exact aliens targeting computer for the thing. So you can change the power savings and the brightness, obviously, which affects how long the battery will last on the charge. Right, set date time. So that's correct, but we want to change the time to 13:40. There we go. So that should be correct now. And there we go, we're back. So, like I said, I'm going to review this one as it is with this actually on it, not the Rad Pro software in a proper video. But yeah, like I said, these are probably one of the best affordable good Geiger counters you can buy, even though some people say these are bad. I don't know why. Yeah, say it's on Amazon Prime. So like I said, who sailed the Indian Ocean, the primitive Saruman, 1986, who was that, sorry? But yeah, anyway, like I was saying, the nice thing with this is that I don't know if it still is, but on Amazon at the moment, or when I ordered it yesterday when I was chatting about them with Saint and some other people, they were reduced to like £67. Yeah, £67.88 at the moment, which is not bad at all. Because like I said, even if you get the fairly good Chinese Geiger counters, like the most similar Chinese ones, and then install Rad Pro on these, and these are the ones where Rad Pro is worthwhile. Because, like I said, the thing with this particular Chinese one, it's good with Rad Pro, not very good by stock. But Rad Pro is like very much a side grade, not an upgrade on the GMC ones. Like I said, the main issue is there's no way you can revert it, because I couldn't find anywhere like the original firmware to flash back onto it. So I can at least now do direct comparisons between the Rad Pro one and the original, and you know, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, anyway. Yeah, fair enough, Saint. Again, that's the problem with loads of these places, isn't it? Like I've said to quite a few people, is that, yeah, like AliExpress I generally find quite good now, because you can generally find the exact same products you find on Amazon, you know, where it's white label Chinese stuff that is just rebranded in the UK for like a third to half the price on AliExpress. And I don't think I've ever had to pay tax on any of that stuff. I think AliExpress now figures your tax out at checkout. So, you know, the price you see is the price you're going to have to pay. You're not going to have to pay an extra £20 and the post office saying, oh no, there's a tax on that you haven't paid. So yeah, that's now saying 100%. I don't know if it's because it's 98% when I unplug it. But yeah, like I said, so yeah, these are pretty damn good. So I'm going to be doing, like I said, a comparison video between that and the Rad Pro one. I'll do a proper longer review on it, you know, widescreen proper review of that one. Because like I said, this is genuinely one of the counters I would recommend to people. You know, if they're not buying Milsurp type ones, because it clicks, you can do different radiation readings on it. It does go pretty damn high, as in you're not going to be able to overload it with, you know, just a weak radiation source, because that used to be the problem with some of the commercially available Geiger counters, that if you buy, you know, if you got literally any sort of check source, they'd overload, whereas this one genuinely seems to go pretty damn high. So that's good. Yeah, National Geographic do good documentaries ones, yeah. Yeah, the problem with Milsurp ones, Saint, so there's different issues with Milsurp ones. So first, obviously, getting one in a good working condition. Then, like you said, calibration. With some of the ones as well, you have the issues as well, that as well as the like just powering them on. Like some of the old surplus ones use really weird batteries. Like the more modern surplus ones don't, but the older surplus ones, some of them you basically can't power, or you have to go really out of your way to power them, because of the fact of, you know, the fact that they used to use weird old obsolete types of batteries. So I have a really cool old American one in a metal case over there. I've already done that ages ago. Like I said, search my channel. Don't ask me, will you do a video on something you've already done? Did a video on the S6 years ago. Can't do another one on it because I don't have that S6 in that condition anymore. Yeah, it's because it's summer, as Saint said. Doesn't mean, I know cloud seeding and all that is a thing, but anyway, going back to the Geiger counters. So the problem with, like, military radiation detectors is, first, you need one that's working and calibrated properly. I mean, with the more modern ones, they don't really go off calibration, because of the fact that, you know, if it's a more digital done thing, it's not going to have loads of issues with old, like, analog valve tubes, you know, vacuum tubes causing drifts. But yeah, it's then powering them. The main issue you have with a lot of the surplus ones is, because some of the parts are quite old, you're going to have something where it's not going to be too long until something breaks. And then unless you can find a spare part and you're good at soldering, you know, you're going to run into issues with that, because of the fact that, you know, a part is going to fail and then you're going to need to find a replacement part and replace it. Well, with modern ones, it's just going to be a modern digital circuit board. You're not really going to have any issues. And like I said, calibration is the weird bit of Geiger counters. So how they calibrate Geiger counters, the best way of using a Geiger counter for just pure radiation is doing it in counts per minute or counts per second. The reason being is that's not a lie, like a number that lies. The problem with where you've got them in the dose equivalents like this is the dose equivalence is done normally on cesium-137 or cobalt-60 with a lot of these counters. And a Geiger counter can only give you a good equivalent dose if it's getting counts from something of about that same radioactive danger level. So it's a bit like, I think I've said this before, but a Geiger counter is a bit like, it's like it counts the bullets, but it can't tell you the power of the bullets. It can only tell it you based on what it was calibrated against. So to a Geiger counter, 22 LR would be the same power as a 50 BMG. It can't tell the difference. It can just count what's going past it or going through it, essentially. It can't tell you dose. It can tell you dose based on a calibration, but I said that's only true to a pure source of that calibration. So if it's calibrated on, say, cesium-137, if you then use it against weak and natural radioactive things, it gives you a scarier dose than it actually is. If you used it on something like cobalt-60 that is more dangerous than cesium-137, it gives you a lower dose. Because like I said, Geiger counters can literally only count. Ionization chambers and spectrometers can give you a better dose equivalent because they're actually measuring radiation in a different way. But there's pros and cons to everything like this. But like I said, counters like this are very good if you just want something that works. You know, it will still let you know the radiation levels, as in, is it low or medium or high? They can still do that. But you know, as a civilian, that's basically all you need. But like I said, with these, you can set them to CPM mode. There you go, CPS or CPM. And that is still completely accurate, because that's how many counts per second the tube is counting. So like I said, even if it's not calibrated on radium, if I bring a radium source into it, that is still correct. How many counts per second it's doing.
1.379 microsieverts per hour.
Right, just acknowledge the alarms on those, and then they're going back down. So that was the other one going off. But yeah, that's how they work. Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. With the soldier, like I said, most of today was just waiting for this to come, and then I didn't even know it had arrived because my dad answered the door and the Amazon tracking hadn't updated to say that, you know, it was this many stops away and it's been delivered. I think it now says it's coming late. It's probably because our area has no mobile network. So yeah, I did try streaming Bloodborne last night on Twitch. A few people watched, including Rajiv, but not as many as the people that said they'd be coming on. And the YouTube bit is still broken. I tried to get again today just to see, oh, is YouTube streaming going to work yet? No, it's still broken. But again, Googling it, setting to like the past month, so many people on PS5 have the issue I'm having, that I generally don't think it's an issue with me at the moment. I think it's an issue where Sony or YouTube have screwed something up, and now loads of people can't access it. And EDT says, hey, sorry to ask, but did you found the pH? No, not yet, because again, as I said, I'd say if I found it, not found it. Again, until a load of stuff sells and then I can clear out more stuff, it's not going to really turn up. And the problem is, so far, one helmet sold, a Geiger counter sold, and then it got seized by customs. But luckily, as that was on eBay's insured international postage thing, the seller was refunded and I got to keep the money. But sadly, that means that now an antique's probably going to get destroyed for no reason. No, I have no idea how you do a TV station. You need licensing for it, and if you didn't have the licensing, like a pirate signal, you'd be getting arrested and a hefty fine. And that's good. Like I said, FMJ05s are fine. They're not particularly comfortable for me, but they're not bad masks. They're just a generic, like, Chinese 6-strap, you know, 40mm gas mask. On internet, well, I mean, on the internet, there wouldn't be a TV station with it. I mean, with YouTube, you can schedule uploads, but like I said, it might. So again, I don't know why you said TV if you then say not like TV. But I know like some people with Substacks are able to do kind of like a proper programming schedule. But yeah, I mean, the problem is if you're having to pay for server hosting, then you're then going to have enough people watching and subscribing to it in some way to offset the cost of server hosting. So it's not really practical. Because like I said, this is the problem with any kind of competitor thing for YouTube. It's always been the case that they've never been able to monetize it well enough that any of the places can offer a good competitive service to YouTube. And I wish there was good competitive things to YouTube, because like I said, that's the problem, that when there's not good competition to YouTube, when YouTube does bad things or they're unreliable, there's no alternative. But sadly, that's the world we're in, where YouTube is basically like the only place that has a monopoly on like a regular video site. Some of the other things like Twitch are better for live streaming, but that's about it. So yeah, like I said, saying I would recommend definitely the GMC 800. To me, it's the best of the, like, I wonder if GQ GMC have a website. I'm just interested in what other counters they do. GQ GMC. I don't want to look up the Amazon. GQ Electronics. Okay. They have a Shopify store. So what do they do? So, oh, they do a radon gas detector as well. That's kind of cool. So yeah, they still do a few different models. But yeah, it does look like the GMC 800 is kind of their top end one in a sense. Like, they do a thing, I don't know if they're ever going to bring it back. They did do the GQ GMC 600, which did detect alpha, which was cool. So it's a lot more like one of, where is it? Had it the other day and I fully charged it. It's up there on the PC. So that one is a lot more like the old Radius Scan, the GMC 600. I had the GQ GMC 500, which is all right, but I don't really know how it's any better than the 800, to be honest. It has 2 GM tubes in it, so it has like a low and a high range tube, but other than that, it's, like I said, this is always really cool. The old Radia codes. But again, this can detect alpha radiation, but the like I said, so it's a better tube in these. But again, I don't think they sadly make these anymore, and I think that's just simply because of the fact that basically I'll flick it off so it doesn't keep ticking. But I think it's because when the Radioscan Radio Code Company had to flee Russia essentially due to a certain special military operation, I'm pretty certain when that happened, you know, they had to abandon all their factories set up there. And Saint says, your water ppm TDS meter just arrived, so now I'll be able to somewhat scientifically prove how bad Thames water quality is. Oh, that's kind of cool. So it's like one of these for water rather than the air. All right, CLK Bateman. Oh, they do a GQ 600 Pro. Okay, that looks really good. So it's basically like kind of this one, but it's with the alpha tube in. Yeah, so that looks interesting. Again, I can't really afford to buy something like that. But yeah, it's actually got the pancake sort of detector in the back. Yeah, so that looks really cool. But like I said, I never know why people don't like the GQ ones. Like they're really low end models. Again, had the same issues lots of lower end Geigers had, that you know, they had a very limited detection range and everything else. But if they were doing a budget model, you can't really blame the product for that. That, you know, you want to not spend much money, they offer you one for that, but it's going to be very primitive because of that. Yeah, again, so a lot of surplus stuff dried up, and again, depends what country you're in with what you can find. Like I said, I'm not a massive fan of most webbing. I don't mind like the British Assault webbing stuff, where it's like an actual just zip-up vest that has a load of pouches and bits on it already, or the Dutch equivalent of that, where it's nothing but molly all over it in a zip-up vest. So you just attach molly wherever you want the stuff. But I've never been a fan of a lot of the webbing gear with the really awkward to attach and detach, you know, like ammo pouches and whatever else, where they use Alice clips or whatever else, you know, where some of them are really a pain in the ass to take the stuff on and off. You know, it's kind of webbing you set up once and then never touch again because of how difficult it is to take the stuff on and off the bouts because of, you know, the way they do the metal hooks on it. Anyway, let me go back to the comments. So Shane says, yeah, it shows how many minerals in the water. I'm also getting a chlorine tester too. They put so much in the water down south compared to north. Yeah, that's the thing, saying, yeah, the modern, and nearly everything is molly now because it's just nice and convenient. Because like I said, molly is good because you literally just undo a button, thread it through, do the buttons like the poppers back up. So, you know, it's compatible with lots of stuff. It's not the ones where it's a specific hook type for a specific belt type, you know, and then if the metal hooks have got a bit bent, good luck getting them ever attached to your thing again. So yeah, don't forget to like the stream if you're on. Quite a few people have liked it. So yeah, what I am interested in now, actually saying, because I got that, I very much doubt tritium will be picked up on this thing, because tritium is, like I said, normally, because tritium is so safe. Let's just take it off the charge. So yeah, so like the tritium in this compass, for example, that can't pick this up at all because the tritium vials block nearly all the radiation. But I'm interested if I get this one and open up the alpha detector, if that will let enough of the tritium radiation through that will get a tiny reading from it. So I'm going to go to counts per second mode just because it's better for if you're checking something that's a very tiny reading. Again, this is more sensitive anyway because it's a bigger alpha window on there, so it's just going to pick more radiation up regardless of whatever you're testing it on. So in a moment when it loads up, I'll put this to counts per minute mode. If I remember how to do that, it's one of the buttons. You might actually have to do it from the menu, I can't remember. So you just want to do the gamma mode. What's the OK button on this? I don't know, that's just select gamma mode, isn't it? Or do I have to go into the options menu to reconfigure it? Options, modes, gamma, dose unit. Oh, there we go. I know that's only Rontgen will see that. How do I do the CPM mode? Or is that search mode? Again, I haven't used this in long enough, I can't remember all the things. So search, let's try the search mode. Yeah, that's the CPS one search mode. Okay, so is it going to pick up anything from here? So if I just hold this here just to get a background, what's that saying about 0 to 1 CPS? If I put it over here, is it going to get anything extra? Again, with this, I wouldn't expect I get much tritium coming through this because of how well built the compass is. So yeah, sadly, I don't think it's going to pick much up there. It's, yeah, like I said, that's the funny thing with tritium. It's radioactive, but how it works, you're basically never going to get any radiation from it because it's all completely contained in its own little glass vial. DPM or woodland? What, you're asking me which one I prefer? For where I am, woodland, but desert DPM is a really nice camo. And same as saying, desert DPM drop leg mollies are about £4 on eBay right now. Great to have if you walk dogs and need to stuff a load of bags somewhere. It acts like a dump pouch, a utility pouch. Yeah, those sort of things are good. I used to do those when dog walking because you can have poo bags in one and like filled up, tied up poo bags until you get to a poo bin in another. Like things like that for water bottles for you and the dogs and stuff like that. But yeah, so anyway, if people want to bring stuff up, bring stuff up. I haven't really looked at the news much today, so let's have a look what's on the news. I know in a couple of days we're expected to be in the middle of another heat wave again. Trump hidden catering truck in secret plane swap over Iran threat. Britain faces worst food security crisis in decades. Right, let's read this. 3/4 of England in drought with increased risk to farmers' harvest and milk production. Britain is facing its worst food security crisis in decades as repeated heat waves risk ruining farmers' harvests, analysts have warned. The warning was issued as nearly 3/4 of England were declared to be in drought, increasing the threat posed to food production across the country. Soaring temperatures are damaging wheat yields, vegetable crops and milk productions. Shore Capital warns, leaving the UK increasingly reliant on food grown abroad. Analysts from the investment bank said the recent period of unprecedented dry, hot weather could damage homegrown food supplies and increase our dependence on costly imported grain. The risks driving up animal feed costs, according to Shore Capital's Akhil Patel and Clive Black, which will trigger higher food prices for consumers. Oh, isn't that great? So you know how food's already expensive, it's going to get worse. Oh, cool. On the GMC site, they have a map. Hang on, this is quite cool. Let me link you guys to this on YouTube. So this is where... yeah, have you seen all the pictures like Hyde Park and everything, Raju, where it's just yellow everywhere? So yeah, this is quite a cool map. It's where you can look at various bits in the US or around the world where they've measured it and see what the radiation levels are. So there's one really high bit near Montreal for some reason. Again, if it's just a one-off that's really high, you don't have somebody submitted a reading where they were using it with a check source. But yeah, so let's go to the UK bit on there. I want to zoom the map out, that's it, then go to the UK. There's a bit in Portugal that's quite high, 61, near Cadiz. Yeah, if I go to the UK, what's the UK radiation levels like? Mostly, in most bits of the UK, 20-odd microsieverts, as in 0.20 microsieverts, as you'd expect. There was a bit in Aberdeen at 72. I could believe that if it's a bit where there's lots of natural granite and stuff like that. I don't know if somebody's mapped it on here, but there is a bit in Cornwall. Yeah, I don't think anybody has, but there is an old, in Cornwall, there's an old uranium mine that's very high natural radiation. But yeah, obviously it depends on what types of rocks are used and stuff like that. But yeah, like I said, the not radio codes, the radio scans, they're very good, but that's what I was on about. The GQGMC ones are also very good for what they are. Sadly, nowhere to urban explore near me, because like I've said before, if you're in the UK, not much stuff to do like that, because it gets torn down to build houses on or build other stuff on. The only thing near me that I've been around a few times is an old sewage works. And again, I think I've taken a Geiger counter around there again, nothing interesting. And there used to be an old grain silo that's long since been torn down because people used to die in there if they fell through the floors and that. So it became like a hazard because, you know, you weren't meant to go in there. But people would always go in there, sometimes while drinking, and then fall off the roof or, you know, fall down shafts in there. And that's about it near me. Because, like I said, I'm in an area where the land value is so high, you're never going to get somewhere that's an actual urban, you know, urbex kind of thing for long. You know, some countries are really good for urbex, sadly not most of the UK because of just the land value. I mean, there are bits of the UK where there's urbex stuff, and then again, there's stuff where, like, you legally can't be there, but a lot of people go in and film anyway. But, you know, that's in a lot of ways quite dodgy because you're documenting then that you're in somewhere that you're trespassing on, which is what surprises me with a lot of these urbex channels, that they don't get into more trouble. Because if you've literally documented that you're breaking into somewhere or whatever to do it. All right, Kevin. One of these came today from Amazon because these are a decent price. So unlike the old one I put Rad Pro on, this one is still the default Seattle firmware on it. How easy change this one to count per minute? Because with Rad Pro, like I said, it's different. Yeah, let's put this one to CPS, so it's the same as that one. And yeah, like I said, the reading's very similar as you'd expect, either with Rad Pro or the other one, because of the fact that they're both around 6, because you know, it's doing counts per second, and they're using the exact same Geiger Muller tube in both of them, in being held in roughly the same place. But like I said, I'll do a proper review on these, because like I said, these are genuinely, for the price, probably the best entry-level Geiger counter. And like everybody says, yes, if you want a really good one, buy a radio code, but this isn't strictly a Geiger counter. This is a scintillation counter, spectrometer scintillation counter. So yeah, if you're spending a bit more, these are really good, but they're not strictly a Geiger counter. And again, I love the size of this thing. You know, it's a bit bigger than your thumb. Sort of hold that against your thumb. But like I said, for the size of these, if you compare them to a classic Geiger counter, they are massively smaller. You know, the size of a GM tube is basically the size of this entire thing, because it just has a little crystal in the end, which is what, like the photo sort of reaction is the radiation. So yeah, these are already good, but like I said, it's a different thing. I wouldn't necessarily, if somebody wants a pure Geiger counter, I wouldn't recommend these. But these are the sort of thing, if you want to spend about £100, are absolutely excellent. How much is the DP5 that sold? That was, with postage, ended up being about 160 quid. Yeah, Badger, I have mixed feelings about that, because yeah, he was leaving the shop with it, and you know, it was still in the packaging. But also, it's one of those things where, like, I'd have personally just bought a fucking bag for it. And then there were people going like, oh, you can't fit a baseball bat in a bag. In sports shops, they do have the really big bags. Like, because again, it's one of those things that, yeah, I think the cop was being a dick over it and all that stuff. But personally, like, I would never want to walk around an urban place holding a baseball bat for that reason, even if it was still in its packaging. Because it wasn't even like blister packaging, was it? It was like cellophane wrap on it. So if you wanted to just do that with it, you'd have been able to do it fine. And I think there was supposedly a protest or some event going on that day, which might have meant the police were at heightened sort of alertness. So yeah, like I said, I hope the guy's completely cleared and everything. But it is one of those ones where I'm not going to be like, oh my God, why did they do that for no reason? It's one of those ones where, like, whenever I've been anywhere where you've bought anything like a knife, or when I went to a gun shop and bought an air rifle, they always insisted on wrapping it up in some way. because they're like, don't just go around holding a fucking knife or an air rifle, you know. Wrap it up in like bin, like when I bought an air rifle, they put bin bags over it and tape the bin bags for me, you know, and said make sure you've got the receipt really obviously, so you can say you're transporting at home. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think it's dickish that he was arrested, but if there was a protest or some event in the city centre that day, with all the problems we have in the UK, I can kind of see why the police might be like, oh, that's somebody with a bat. See, personally, how I think they should wrap those bats up is maybe like a bit of blister packaging on them, you know, like the plastic stuff that you have to cut with scissors to get off of it. But like I said, if it was me, I would always put something like that in a bag, you know, just pay the extra bit of money for a massive drawstring sort of sports bag they sell in Sports Direct type places, and then stick it in there. And again, like it's not me trying to defend the police, it's more of a common sense thing, because I know the sheer amount of Karens that might see you carrying a baseball bat and think you're up to no good. Like, I'm kind of surprised they even sell those in city centre stores, to be honest. Like, that's the kind of thing would make more sense to just do on home delivery. Yeah, but the problem is, Shibes, again, again, this is the problem, Kevin, because you don't see the filming start prior to when, like, a confrontation is starting. For all we know, a minute prior to that cop hassling him, he could have been waving the bat at somebody. Like I say, this is always the problem when you get these videos where you start seeing it getting filmed before the event started. It could go either way a lot more, depending on what happened prior to the person filming it or choosing to edit out the video. So from what I understand, he did actually just buy it on the high street in like the sporting goods store. But like I said, that is kind of the loophole, that you are meant to be allowed to buy it and then take it home. Or he was saying, I'm going to go to the park to play baseball or whatever. I don't know if he had any baseball bags or like tennis balls in his bag or whatever. But this is the thing, is that if you buy something like that, and like I said, it was wrapped up, but it was wrapped up in the sense it just had a bit of like cling film stuff around it. And like I said, if you have any kind of bat, where's my truncheon gone I had visible the other day? Oh, the S10's on top of it. If you were to buy something like this in the store, and it was literally just wrapped with kind of, not even bubble wrap, but just some cling film stuff around it with like a branded sticker, there's nothing stopping you still caving somebody's head in with it. That's the thing. But as Shibe said, and Saint saying, they're very bad at de-escalating now. Yeah, like the cop could have said to him, that's fine, but I'm going to wait here till you go back in the store, or I'll hold on to it while you go back in the store and you buy a bag to put it in, so you're not just walking down the street with it, kind of thing. Yeah. And because this is the thing, in a lot of situations, it goes either way, where sometimes the police can be in the wrong about something. So I was watching like a body cam video about this before in the US. But because of the way the person just freaked out and started escalating it, they brought it completely on themselves, because the police weren't being unreasonable. Like, they had the wrong person, but because the person that they stopped, you know, even it wasn't the person that they were looking for, ended up immediately trying to escape the scene and like trying to throw punches at the officer, like they got all the trouble brought on themselves. Or if they just politely said, you know, answered a couple of questions, the police would realize it wasn't the person they were looking for. So you get that both ways, where like the police don't know how to de-escalate a lot of the time, and they seem to goad people into doing something that will then get them arrested. But also you see videos of people that just can't calmly talk to a cop and have to always be an I'm in the right kind of mindset. And then that gets them in trouble as well. Because again, I've had times where I've been stopped by the cops, you've spoken to them politely and actually answered their questions, and then they just let you go because they realize you're not actually there to cause trouble. But again, if you're a cop that's, you know, potentially had something happen in that area, and you might look a bit like the description of somebody they're looking for, or they're told to be on the lookout for somebody being a bit suspicious or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I'm not answering any of your questions, and you keep trying to walk away from them, then you're going to escalate it, aren't you? Because basically you're like making yourself look even more sus. Whereas if you then say to the cops, all right, yeah, I'll happily explain what I'm doing here, even if you don't particularly like being stopped by them, very quickly they're like, oh yeah, you're fine then, because they realize you're not the type of person that was going to be causing the issue. But I think that's the problem. I think both people talking to the police and the way the police sometimes deal with things just makes things worse. And the thing says, a leftist cop targeting people who might have right-wing ideas is something I would never be surprised about. Bias will always be a thing. Yeah. But like I said, this is why you don't give them a reason to. And again, I saw people calling people pussies over this for loads and loads of things online. But this is the thing where even if you think the cops are treating you badly, you take it to court and you do it through the proper channels so you can get a payment or whatever, or have your name cleared. You don't think, even if you think they're totally in the wrong, there is no way that if you punch a cop or try and sprint off, it's going to actually end up better for you than if you think, fine, handcuff me then and we'll get this sorted out. Because I then saw people going, oh, you're a pussy because all the courts are captured, and the only way to resist wrongful arrest is to fight back. It's like, no, that's giving them exactly what they want. Because even if it was very shaky ground or what they might have gotten you on before, as soon as you start swinging like fists at the cop or whatever, they can just get you on a whole slew of charges, even if they can get you on the original thing. And like I said, this is the thing where, for a lot of people, you could probably just comply and just, say you think you're completely innocent and they're in the wrong, but comply with what they want, and then get a good fucking lawyer that can potentially get you a load of money out of the situation, going over maybe disability or race or whatever and all that sort of shit. Because again, like I said, with most cops, even if you don't like them, they are people. And if you deal with somebody that's polite and courteous and doesn't cause you issues, even if you might have a bit of a misgiving about them, they're less likely to want to push stuff. Yeah, exactly. And this is what I'm saying. It's like where I've watched some of these videos from the US. Yeah. Why would you? Yeah. This is the thing, especially Kevin, where you can get shot by the US cops a lot more easily. But in any sort of situation with the cops, I've never seen anything that's worked out well for somebody by punching, pulling a gun on the cop, being as argumentative as possible. Because there's been a lot of videos I've seen from US cops, as much as people insult US cops, where I'm watching US cop body cams, where the cops are completely reasonable. And they're saying well, if you keep loitering in this area and you're being trespassed, we're going to have to arrest you. But if you just walk away and don't come back, you're clear to go. We don't want to deal with the paperwork. And the person wants to make the thing of no, I am going to stand here and answer back and all this. It's this, am I being detained sort of thing. I'm a sovereign citizen and all that shit. And I just do not get the mentality of the people when the cops give you an easy way out. These people decide to go, you know what, I actually want to get arrested and all this. Or that they then start complaining after 10 minutes of arguing the cops and being difficult that they then get detained or whatever, when they could have just asked the cops for a reasonable explanation on why they can't be where they are and then just leave. And that especially goes to extra levels when the people are doing something wrong, like they've got drugs on them or something they shouldn't have on them, and they'd have completely gotten away with having that on them, if they didn't get to the stage where they were patted down or frisked or whatever else because they start being argumentative. If they were just like, oh yeah, I'm here because, I'm a bit bored and I'm just loitering. And Saint says there's a fine line between being a defender of the Constitution and not using your IQ. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they drew first blood, not me. And MG19 says, 10 years ago, my friends and I were playing airsoft at local unused piece of land. The cops showed up and asked us to shoot our guns. Yeah, so they sound like all right ones. Because again, I've met some cops that are really all right people that just want to have a bit of a joke about, and they'll let you on your way. I've met other cops that are real, they escalate something that didn't need to be escalated, where you try and say to them, can we do the least harmful thing if something's being asked about, because I don't really want to press charges against somebody or whatever else, even if it's inconvenienced me, I'm fine. And then, the cops try and railroad you into taking one sort of action. But yeah, that's the thing. And I think this is the problem as the police lose more responsible officers because of recruitment problems and everything else. You get more people in the police that just want to abuse the power of it and whatever else. So like you're saying, you definitely lose the people that just give you a sensible talking to and might say, look, yeah, you bought that baseball bat, fine, put a fucking bag on it so nobody's going to keep looking at you and thinking you're wielding a baseball bat in the street. Because again, that's what my dad said, the police always used to be like when he was a kid. You could have a massive sheath knife on your thing, and even if the cops were like, yeah, I know you're in the Boy Scouts and that, but maybe if you're just playing in the park, don't have your big knife on you. When you go home tonight, don't take it out on you next time. you know, and if I see you next time with it, I'll give you a more serious talking to kind of thing. And that was apparently the attitude the police used to have a lot, because then you didn't have to deal with the paperwork of arresting people and whatever else. Yeah, exactly, Saint. The people who were just there for the money or just there to abuse the power. And again, this is the thing I've heard from people I know have been in the police before, is they're the people who left because of the fact they didn't feel like they were doing a job of actually protecting people and being an honest cop, because they kept getting sent out on stupid like stuff that wasn't normal police stuff, you know, or had to deal with colleagues that they were like, if somebody pulled a knife on me, that person's going to run away. And if I'm getting stabbed, you know, they are not going to help me. They're like that. Because that was what a guy I used to go to school with, who ended up joining the police and then left after a few years, was saying. He said there were barely any officers, if you went out on, like, you know, a call that might turn dangerous, that you could rely on that might save your life. You know, he said so many of them were so chicken shit that, you know, if something did escalate and somebody pulled out a knife and started stabbing you, he's like, the other officer, rather than stopping the guy and then stopping your bleeding, would probably just sprint off, call for help, and you'd be dead and bled out by then. And I think that's why he eventually left the police, because he felt they were doing too much bullshit that wasn't real police work. And, you know, so many of the people you had to work with were lazy or like chicken shit or whatever. Yeah, again, so it was a very different time, wasn't it? This is the weird thing of like how the UK has turned more like authoritarian over time. It is insane to me that people, and again, I don't mind saying now because he's dead and he won't get in trouble for it. My granddad used to have a fucking load of live ammo in his house. It's gone now. He did deactivate it. I wish he didn't, you know, by hitting it with a hammer, which wasn't a good way to deactivate it. My granddad just had loads of live fucking 303 ammo in his house for some reason. And he was like, oh, my neighbor gave it me, who used to do shooting a lot. He's like, oh, do you want it? I better deactivate it before I give it you. But it was like, this was the sort of attitude. People just had ammo lying about or whatever else. And nobody cared because they weren't terrorists or whatever else. And like I said, we used to have a gun culture in this country, not like as much as the US has one. But people used to be able to just shoot and own guns, and it was never so much of an issue. And then as, you know, we turn into this shitty low trust society where everything has to be constantly locked away and prices go up because of constant shoplifting, and you constantly have to do more stuff to prove that you're who you say you are, because nobody will just take your word for it anymore. It's, you know, turning more and more into just this sort of nightmare society where you basically have to just be wearing body armor all the time and thinking everyone is going to try and scam or stab you. And it's not good, but yeah, that's the world we live in, I'm afraid. Yeah, exactly, Kevin. If you're in a place where you can open carry or whatever, and you're like, yeah, I've got a gun, or there's a gun in my glove box or whatever, I won't make any sudden moves. But yeah, this is like saying this is the complete difference, I think, with the mentality of it compared to years ago. It was a nonce saying, yeah, he was arrested, he was a nonce, and they didn't take his guns away at the point they charged him or whatever. So he thought, why not go out with a bang? I'll give those little kids a bit of a bang. Yeah. So if the police were the fucking Dunblane nonce, when they arrested him for being a nonce, took his fucking guns away while he was awaiting charges, he wouldn't have had the chance to shoot up a school. But because they didn't do that, and they basically said, oh, you're facing really serious stuff and your life's probably over, but they didn't take his guns away, he thought, right then, you know, this is how I want to go out. And again, like Michael Ryan in Hungerford, he wasn't a nonce, but from what I understand, he had his gun license extended even when they thought they probably shouldn't have done. Yeah, I don't know about Slovenia's. I know the Czech one's apparently pretty based from what I've heard. But yeah, Switzerland's pretty cool because they want people to be ready to fight in a war if they get invaded. They like the idea that you own a gun trained to use it. Yeah, exactly, Saint. This is the thing. It's like there's been quite a few things over the years in loads of countries, like the Dunblane incident, where I think the Port Arthur one in Australia was really similar. That like the police had an opportunity to take the person's guns when they thought he might do something bad with them, didn't, and then because the guy knew that the noose might be tightening on him, just decided, oh, let's go and shoot a load of people, you know, let's do a murder-suicide spree, because I've probably said loads of words now on this YouTube stream that YouTube aren't going to like, but yeah, exactly that. There is so many cases where, like, if the police dealt with the incident in a sensible way the first time somebody was arrested, depending on who it was, you wouldn't have had the horrible things that happened afterwards, because they wouldn't have been in a position to do that. And that, I know it's always the lessons learned thing and it's the hindsight thing, but there's just so many cases like that. All right, Savoury Doofus, like I said, where I know you don't really hear about the ones where they might have done the sensible action. Yeah, exactly, Saint. And that's the thing, lots of people in lots of countries think that lots of the time known terrorist attacks, for example, they have a lot of intel that they're going to be carried out, but they don't act because they, if it happens, then, oh, we can put more laws on everyone. Yeah, depends on the cop, but even then, it's like, you know, he's not like, oh, I want to keep your gun on me the entire time while I handcuff you just in case. Right, I used to have a, not American M1, but I used to have, I can't remember if it was Danish or whatever, but it was another European country's clone of the M1, you know, like a one-to-one clone of it. I sold that years ago. Somewhere, and again, it's probably buried under a pile of shit in here, I have the French rip-off of the M1 helmet that I've done a video on before. Oh, it's there. So, hang on, let me get it. It's not strictly an M1 clone, because the French claim it's not. So, this thing, and again, I've got the cooler liner in it, the rubberized liner that was like later gen liner. This is the French rip-off of the M1. That in no way is an M1 rip-off, because then they'd have had to pay a license for it. It just totally happens France after the M1 helmet came out. You know, like in 1951 or whatever it is the M51 helmet. After, you know, there were all these M1 helmets lying around France after World War II. The French just happened to make a helmet that's like almost a 1-1 copy of the American M1. And no, we're not paying a license. It's not the M1. It is not the M1. How dare you say that? This is completely original French design. Yeah, I mean, loads of NATO countries did do M1 clones under license for obvious reasons, like why so many countries had the USM9 ones, like Finland, even though they weren't a NATO member. It was just literally because you could get a license from the Americans to build them, and they were a good design. Like, again, out of the steel pot helmets, the M1 is one of the best designs. There's a reason it stuck around until Kevlar helmets replaced it with Pasca, you know, and they didn't need, like, another helmet, because it is basically just designed right. It's got a good suspension system in it for what it is. You know, the chin strap works fine, gives you good head coverage. It's that kind of shape, you know. Ballistically, it stops most pistol calibers, even though, you know, these weren't designed to stop pistol calibers. But they're genuinely good helmets, you know. Good head coverage. You can still see fine out of it. You can still hear fairly well because there's a bit of a gap where your ears are. But yeah, like I said, the weird thing of American M1s is, while I know they're good helmets, I just find them a bit boring. I don't know if that's because they're just so common in media. But, you know, like, there's some bits of surplus that are like that, where they're like, yeah, it's a completely functional thing that did its job fine, but it's a bit boring. Yeah, you can get Saint, you can get pretty good Chinese repros of them. I've got a Chinese M35 copy somewhere, but I don't know whereabouts that is at the moment. And again, like I said, I would say the Stahlhelms are the ones that are the best of the design, in the sense that the Stahlhelm design is still used on nearly every helmet today, because of the, you know, the Germans just got the cut right the first time of, you know, where the eye level is, where the rest of the head protection is. You know, they look cool as well. But like I said, bowl style helmets like this are absolutely fine. You know, they absolutely do the job of protecting your head. And it's just, you know, America could have made a Kevlar helmet that looked like this. That'd be a lot more Mark 6 looking, but they ended up just going for the Pasca helmet is basically just a Stahlhelm made out of Kevlar. Yeah, like I said, Saint, most if you're on about the Milsup copies of, yeah, Finland did use the German style helmets for quite a long time. Like I said, there's a reason like a lot of these helmets just stuck around everywhere for years. It's because if it's a good design and you're like designing your own helmet, you're kind of like, why do we need to waste all this R&D research on designing something, you know, that's a little bit different than whatever, that, you know, we don't know if it'll work. Weirdly, the other French helmets under here, this is the French one that replaced that one before they went to a Kevlar helmet. And yeah, like this one's all right. It's like I said, this one's a bit small on me. It's not got the full liner in it. but it's, you know, this was just a higher quality steel helmet they replaced their M1 copies with, even though it's kind of a bit pointless they did it in the end. But I think this was just a higher rated steel helmet. Oh yeah, this also, as you can see, has a bit more of the Stahlhelm style cut at the front. So it's designed to give you a bit better visibility as well. So yeah, the idea is that it still sits low around your neck area, but it's, you know, gives you a bit better vision there. Yeah, Mark 7s are really nice. So I sold my Mark 7 just because I needed the money. But Mark 7s, I think if we hadn't moved to ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, a Mark 7 would still be easily around. Because like I said, which Mark 6 did you get? The Mark 6 or the Mark 6A? Because if you've got a standard Mark 6, I've got bad news for you, MG19. Because like I said, the Mark 6s are weird. So Britain had the Mark III, the Mark IV, and there is a Mark V, but it's so rare most people don't really consider it exists, which were the like Brody helmets, but more of a bowl shape. It's essentially if you get a Brody, and then rather than it having the rim in the little high bit, it's just like the Brody's rim with a, like, you know, thing like that. And again, they work fine for most of the Cold War. Britain then went to the Mark VI, and the logic of the Mark VI was it used ballistic nylon, the same as the flak jackets. But the problem is with the Mark VI helmet, is because you need like 3 times the thickness of Kevlar or something like that with ballistic nylon to have the same effect, it just doesn't really work in a helmet. So the weird thing about the Mark VI is it's apparently slightly better shrapnel protection than the steel pot helmets, but it's much worse in terms of ballistic protection. There are a couple of channels that have shot ones where it have held up better than other videos I've seen, but in general, things like the steel pot stop it can't stop. The Mark 6A is fine because it's actually Kevlar, but that was like the emergency stopgap one. And then the Mark, yeah, the green Mark 6, yeah. So it's the one, it works well as a hard hat, that one, but yeah, it's not very good if you actually wanted to use it to protect yourself from anything. Like I said, the Mark 6A is just a Kevlar version that fixed all the issues of getting your head, you know, ventilated. And then, like I said, the problem with the Mark 6As, though, even though they will completely ballistically protect you, is the fact that apparently if you were prone, the back of the helmet would always knock against your body armor or backpack and like swivel over your eyes. And that's why the Mark 7 was then brought out as like a stopgap to fix the Mark 6 problems. And everyone liked the Mark 7 because although it's quite bulky for a Kevlar helmet, it's cut in a very good way. It doesn't interfere with gear. Lots of soldiers were saved by them that, you know, would have been killed if they were wearing other helmets because of how thick the Kevlar was and the shape of the helmet. But yeah, like I said, now Britain's using the same thing as American helmets, which mean America and Britain are 2 of the only armies in the world that are using ultra high molecular weight polyethylene helmets for all their troops. And like I said, that the reason they're using that is it's lighter and offers better protection than Kevlar for like the same weight. All right, Devon. And Kevin says, thinking back, they were really dressing as troops like some kind of sci-fi troopers, low-cut paskets and digital UCD camo. Yeah, it wouldn't look about it on plays 80s. But again, it's all like the Command and Conquer aesthetic. Cool. Is there any proof it was used in the Falklands, or is it just somebody claiming that? Because that's always the sort of thing you see where there's a famous war and somebody will say surplus item from that time period was used in that war to sell it for a higher price. Yeah, for a Kevlar helmet, it's one of the best Kevlar helmets that was on the market in terms of protection because of the shape of it and the thickness of it. Like I said, there was nothing wrong with it. As a Kevlar helmet, it was one of the best ones there. It's just ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene is what's replacing Kevlar because it's just, you know, it does offer better ballistic protection for the weight. So it's one of those things that, you know, your survival chances if you're wearing it are just better. And Saint said even ECBA, the plates are too small for me. Again, the ECBA plates are designed just to literally cover that bit of your chest because they were like, again, a stopgap armor. But again, they're the funny type of stopgap ones where Britain ended up finding they were just too damn useful, especially for troops that didn't need the really bulky armor. But yeah, it's Gary, we're just chatting about random shit at the moment. But yeah, in general, the like I said, that with plate carriers, we're kind of going back, it seems, that Ukraine's teaching everybody that you want a full style flak jacket with plates in it, as opposed to, you know, like high speed, low drag plate carriers or whatever else. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me saying, because again, if the American armors that had the full on plates in the front would stop, yeah, would literally stop rifle rounds. That's what they're designed to do. Oh, cool, yeah. What, the ex-police style ones, like the front and back one, like the same plates, but yeah, like the big rectangular ones. But yeah, they're very good for that price, yeah. Like I said, I think they were about 60 each when I got mine, but yeah, they are very good. And like I said, they're the ones I've got in my current body armor thing. The ceramics, the big ceramics rectangle plates like that are fairly heavy, but once you got the weight of the thing over your shoulders and tied up around there, it's not too bad. Like I said, ultra high molecular weight polyethylene is definitely lighter, but you get more back face deformation with that. So, you know, there's stuff where it will stop it, but you'll probably get more broken ribs than if it was a ceramic spray. Yeah, because like I said, Saint, the problem with Osprey stuff is, like ECBA, the plates were unique to the armor. So it's not one where you can just stick a generic sappy cut plate in there that you can easily find as surplus and go with it. That's why I personally wouldn't recommend them for people as a shit hit the fan armor, unless you managed to find one that was being sold at a good price with all the fillers in it. Yeah, that's the thing, Devon, isn't it? Because if you've got one that has good load bearing across various bits of your body, it's absolutely fine. The issue is with a lot of those things is when the weight's added to a backpack and everything else, and depending on how much you're sitting down, standing up, sitting down, standing up. But yeah, like I said, I don't find my plate, the Kevlar 3A vest with the level, like, they're like 3+ ceramic plates, we should call them, because they're not level 4. But they're better than standard level 3s, those ceramic plates in the front and back. And again, they're not even the sappy cut ones, they're the full-on rectangle ones, so they cover even more than the sappy plates. The sappy plates like that shape, these are basically that shape. Like a big rectangle shield kind of thing. Yeah, like I said, that's why people can charge a lot for them. But you sometimes see some of those listings have been up for ages, Saint. So again, at those prices, nobody's willing to buy them. So it's that kind of, you know, market, isn't it? The person charging a lot for it isn't going to make a sale because nobody's willing to pay that, but they don't want to drop the price down because they've probably paid that amount to get the item, or they think somebody will eventually buy it for that price. Again, like I said, that's the problem I've had when I've sold stuff on eBay is sometimes you have to drop the price so low to make a sale in the end that you're like, I'm losing money selling this, and then that's kind of defeating the point of why I'm selling it. So unless you really want some quick money or just to make some space quickly, you're kind of like, I'd rather just wait longer for a sale than, like, you know, losing half the price of what I spent on something to drop it to a price people want to spend. Like I said, that's why I've said to people it's not a good thing at the moment to rely on any sort of sales like that if you need your money, because a lot of people aren't snapping at deals. Yeah, the I know what I got, sonny. Yeah, the boomer I know what I got technique. Yeah, I mean, with those people though, like I was going to say to them, you kind of can't blame them in a way because they do know what they have. Yeah. And they do know it's worth a bit, but it is the problem that, yeah, if your listing has been up for over a year and nobody's bought it, you might want to drop the price just a little bit and see if then anybody buys it. But like I said, the main reason with the Osprey thing is if you're buying it as somebody who really wants to collect Osprey gear, in the UK, you can just buy another brand of plate carrier or body armor, put normal standard sappy plates in like everyone in the US does for body armor, and do it for way cheaper. Because like I said, the problem is the Osprey ones you're buying. If I get a picture of the Osprey plate up, I'll show you what I mean. So yeah, this is the weird Osprey plates. You'll notice they're not even like completely symmetrical plates, the front one. It's like kind of cut more, it's like, I guess it's designed so your right arm's got a bit more movement in it. But they're weird plates. So yeah, these are the ones that we're on about, Kevin, that like I said, go for stupid amounts of money because they're the ones that were in the British thing during Afghanistan and Iraq. Like I said, they're good, very good plates. The problem is that the plate carriers don't take standard fitting plates, so they're kind of, you know, a bit pointless. Just what most people should do is do what I do, buy something that takes sappy plates and just get sappy plates because you can get them on the surplus market way cheaper because the police and everybody else uses them. Yeah. This is Hitler's personal muzzin. I know, got no lower than 2,000 pounds. I know what I got, sonny. Yeah. Again, like I said, I need to list some more things on eBay soon. What I did just do, because my friend's going to cover the cost of it, is I bought a couple of cheap Dreamcast games now, just so I can plug them in, prove to him my Dreamcast works to sell in my Dreamcast. Because burning a disc for a Dreamcast if you're not using Windows is a load of bollocks, because the Dreamcast burning software for doing the discs that the Dreamcast can then read, even though you can find the ROMs easily online, is a pain in the ass to get working on Linux, even if you're using Wine and whatever else to emulate it, because it then has issues seeing your like DVD burn or whatever. Yeah, as I say, this is the problem with UK eBay as well, is that there's lots of stuff compared to US eBay, like bayonets, daggers, and all that sort of stuff. I could easily sell on eBay, but I can't. You know, you can buy and sell them legally in the UK, but eBay UK doesn't let you sell them. And like I said, that fucking Scott Pro mask I put for sale on eBay, that they took the listing down saying it was a dangerous item, like it was, you know, an old gas mask that had asbestos in it. It's like, it's a gas mask from the 1990s, and I'm not even selling it with a filter. Yeah, eBay was like, oh no, it's one of those old asbestos gas masks. You can't sell that on eBay. So I was like, oh, I have to put that on Etsy or somewhere else. Like I said, the Scott Pro mask is cool, but I don't want to sell it for like less than 50 quid because I probably paid closer to 100 for it. I did at least find my original M98, so I have got the one with the drinking tube thing on it. I might have to get another canteen for that though, because I don't know where my old canteen is for that. I actually like the canteen system on the M98, and it'd be the same as the Finnish M05, but I don't have the M05. I've got the civilian version without the drinking tube on it. It's like a canteen that has a weird like nozzle on the bottle cap, and you actually push it into the mask like that. So you don't Vinted, right? I'll have to remember to set up a Vinted account because a load of people have recommended me Vinted. So let me just go on Vinted and see if I can find. Let's just search Army Surplus on Vinted and see what's on there. But yeah, you're right. I probably ought to just make... So yeah, loads of old Army Surplus jackets on there at reasonable prices. Webbing. Yeah, I'll just have to make a Vinted account and sell on Vinted because it does look like Vinted is just better than eBay now for selling that sort of thing. Let me just search gas mask on there, for example. Polish MP4 gas mask. A weird modified PDF mask, some weird old industrial masks, some masks without filters on, some old Warsaw Pact masks, some industrial masks. Yeah, there's quite cool stuff on there. Somebody's selling a black PBF for £40, which isn't bad at all for a PBF. GP5M for £24. An S10 for £50. Does somebody want an S10? I'm going to link you to this one now. It's a buy it now one as well. An S10 with a satchel. And I don't think it's a tiny size, is it? Does it say what size it is? I don't think it's a size 4. I think it's probably a size 3. But yeah, let me link this, assuming that the seller's legit and everything. There you go. There's an eBay. It's a satchel, but it's not the DPM satchel. It's the older, like S6 style satchel. But yeah. Upload. There you go. So you need to give it a clean. But yeah, that's a fucking S10 for not stupid money. Yeah, you just need to give it a good soak in some, like, you know, scent-free soapy water. Warm scent-free soapy water. But yeah, that is a fucking S10 for not stupid money. Unlike nearly all the ones that I've seen for sale on eBay. All right, Mike. So Mike says, yeah, my grasshopper's damaged, sadly, but I might see if I can sell that as a damaged one and still get 100+ quid for it. And Weapon Collector said, ask the mouth fart mask on there. Not that I'm after one, lol. Not that I saw, Mike, no. You're all right, Mike? Oh, I was going to say, I can't remember if I said to you, I have worked out now how we can do the dual streams on YouTube. So if I try and stream from my mobile like this, before you go live, there's a tick box that says invite other people to join, and then you can't start the stream till you're both in, and you're both in like a little camera bit like that. Yeah, I'm good. So yeah, I was telling other people this just because it was funny. That my mum the other day started looking for jobs for me because she's like, "Oh, I'm sure there's jobs in our area, you know, and you're just not looking hard enough." I think she spent several hours and couldn't find anything because she didn't believe me, and I was like, "No, the job market's just fucked." Yeah, it'd be good to do. I did try streaming on Twitch last night, stream for a couple of hours, because the PlayStation 5 to YouTube streaming thing's broken for me. And I did Google it, and a load of other people are having the issue where it like says you need to verify your account and then wait 24 hours to live stream. I verify it and it says, oh yeah, you're all verified. You go to stream and it gives you the same error. And I've waited days, I've unlinked it, relinked it and all that. So I did stream some Bloodborne on my PS5 to Twitch yesterday, but the problem is I can't earn money on Twitch because I don't have enough subscribers. And only a couple of people from YouTube came on. Then I had the sort of people, you know, that are doing the typical thing of, oh, I'll follow you if you follow me back kind of thing, but not the people that are just there to have a proper chat about the game or whatever. Yeah, Twitch work, but like I said, I don't really have enough people watching me on Twitch. Again, I will stream Bloodborne on Twitch tonight if a few people on here want to come over. If we decide a time that people, you know, think is a good time for it and that. Because I had the Sony webcam on, because look, I actually dug out where this was, look. And that's better than my fucking Logitech webcam. That Sony one. That actually works better. It's a better webcam. But yeah, I think what's happened, Mike, is I reckon either YouTube or PlayStation have updated something somewhere and it's broken the linking thing. And I think the only people that can get it working are people that... I think it helps if you have, like, your Google account and your YouTube account are the only thing on that. All right, do you know what time's good for you, Mike? And then I might just try and do it about that time. And then that way, if people want to have a chat, but I'll have to sort of think what a good time is for it. You know, because I'm quite easy on that. I've not got much else I need to do this evening. So if there's times where people are watching and saying that's a good time for me, then I'll just aim to do it then, rather than what I want to do. Yeah, I did have a problem as well where the mic wasn't working on the headset stuff. Well, the mic was working on the headset, but PlayStation muted it for some reason, but I sorted that out anyway. What else was I saying about stuff like that? Yeah, Vinted, I'll definitely look into Vinted, because again, I can probably relist that Scott gas mask for sale on there that eBay is, oh, you can't sell that on eBay. So I'll just put that on Vinted. And maybe on Vinted, people are more interested in looking for that sort of stuff, so you have less time wasters with it. But yeah, so what else were we talking about that was interesting? I can't remember now. Oh, saying I did use to have a Yeti snowball. I've still got that. All right, cool. Yeah, like I said, I don't really know what time I was going to do it tonight anyway. Can't you just set the price to a set price and not let people offer you lowballs? Because I've had eBay lowballs where people... I had that one guy that asked for 15 quid for that Geiger counter that sold for 160. And I think that was before I even dropped the price to 160. He's like, give you 15 quid for it. I was like, no, fuck off. But yeah, I'm sure they probably have a thing, don't you, where you can just say no offers or whatever, or you can set a minimum offer price. Because I did see with eBay, you can set a thing where if offers are below a certain thing, it just auto-deletes them, basically. Like, they have to send you an offer over a price you're willing to accept before the offer even goes through. Or you say, no, you can just ignore the offers or set a new one. Yeah, okay. But like I said, Vinted might just be better than eBay if they're less funny about some of the militaria stuff on there. As long as they've got good buyer and seller protection, I don't mind. But like I said, it's just with eBay, it's like I said, I've had some people on there that are absolutely fine, but then you get other people that just really want to waste your time. And like I said, I was just really lucky with that Geiger counter that it was through the insured eBay selling thing. Because like I said, otherwise I'd have lost the item and had to refund the seller. But luckily, because I did it through the insured thing, eBay refunded the seller out of their money. They then probably get the Geiger counter somehow where they can request it from the customs people that seized it. And then, you know, I didn't have to pay the person. Yeah, I normally do like Royal Mail tracked only because of the fact that even if it costs more for, you know, posting it, I don't want to have a fucking thing where somebody damages or steals your parcel to save a couple of quid. It's like, what's the point at that stage? If you're selling something expensive, why would you risk every? You know, you want to always use a good courier. I can understand that on really cheap items, but even then, like, I'm willing to pay £4 postage on a £5 item if I know the item's going to turn up. Yeah, we used to have a good every driver in my area, actually. Like, we used to have one guy, it was always the same guy in the same car, you know, like, white middle-aged guy that was like, all right, mate, and here's your parcel. Never had a parcel go missing, never had a parcel be stupidly late when it was him. after he must have stopped doing rounds for every, I've had a lot more issues with parcels since then. And again, sometimes I don't think it even gets to the local driver before it goes missing in the thing. I found DPD is very good, but I've only really used them when I've bought from them. Oh, that's very bad, Mike, yeah. Oh, I saw eBay does in post. Is that where you like take an item to drop it off at a certain like dedicated thing, and then once you've done that, it's like registered that it's out of your hands kind of thing, that you know you've taken the item as described to a like, you know, the drop off point, and now it's like, you know, somebody else is insuring it. Yeah, Kevin, I think this guy doing it on eBay was just doing it to be a dick. And again, I wasn't even being a boomer with it, like I said, because I was charging less for a DP5A, the oldest model, than some of the people were selling just the DP5Vs without any of the accessories for. You know, where like some of those people wanted 300 quid for a DP5V with no accessories, like the DP5A with no accessories, for like a quarter of like half the price, 2/3 of the price of that. It's quite good. How many I know what I got, sonnies, did you get? Yeah, like I said, I definitely won't use every, but like I said, as long as you can use Royal Mail or whatever else, I don't mind. Because like I said, if it's an expensive item, I normally use tracked and signed for or whatever. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything particularly interesting to talk about that people want to bring up. Because like I said, oh, I think I've got that Sturmgewehr bayonets handy that Kevin was on about. Yeah, there it is. And this is probably the one that is going to Mike when I eventually meet up with him, because Mike's on. The one I got him as a gift, and then that was conveniently then both of us weren't free for ages. And now I don't drive, it's harder to get to him. But we figured out a bus way I can get to him. And if I put this at the very bottom of a rucksack wrapped up, it wouldn't be a problem. Yeah. I can't remember if I have any of the wood ones, Mike, because I think you said you'd rather have a wood one, but the plastic ones are still all right. But yeah, there you go. The Sturmgewehr 57 bayonet. Because I've got one on my Sturmgewehr, so I only need one of these. And one of my friends bought one of my other ones, and that wasn't a wooden one. So I don't know where the wooden one is at the moment. It'll turn up when I don't want it. Actually, this might be wood. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell which of these are plastic and which are wood. No, this is plastic. You can see like the mold line on it. But yeah, like I said, because Kevin saw one of these where it was really cheap for just the blade itself and the tang without the pommel and that. Yeah, like I said, these are really nice bayonets, these ones, for what they were. Again, they used to be a lot cheaper. These used to be at one point like 20 to 40 pounds each. Now nearly all of them are sold for more like 100 each. But yeah, it's just one of those classic giant dagger bayonets. It's not really sharp. You could probably sharpen it up if you wanted to, put a good edge on it, because it looks like it would take an edge, unlike some of the bayonets. But yeah, it's just it's like an FS dagger, but just massively oversized. Because this and the FS knife were two of the only knives that if I dropped them onto a wooden panel from a height where it would properly stick into the panel, you know, like where you could use it like a proper throwing knife, as opposed to the knives that just like make a little dent and bounce out. Yeah, like I said, they are very cool things. Like I said, when I took the screws off, I could take the pommel, I could take bits of the pommel off, but then, you know, I think you still probably need pliers to pull that bit off really hard to then work that bit off the tang. That's kind of annoying, but that's all right, Devon. I assume you didn't sew through the material, did you? Don't need a knife license. Yeah, which one's the FN49 bayonet? Let's have a look. But yeah, like I said, that's the shame with lots of these things. Is that like a foul bayonet, or is it something completely different? FN49 bayonet. I don't want to go back. Why is it? Bayonets of Luxembourg. So it's a Fabrique Nationale. Oh, it's for a 30-06 gun. Okay, that's a weird thing. So what was it for, like, is it like to go on a Garand or something? or like an FN built 30-06 rifle. Yeah, I can see one for Sally Antiques has one for 145 quid that's not in great condition. So what gun did it actually go on it? Oh, model 1949 self-loading rifle. Okay. FN model 1949. Okay, so it's basically that FN made another battle rifle that looks kind of like a Lee Enfield jungle carbine just before they made the FAL. And yeah, obviously the FAL is a lot more modern looking than a 1949. It's still a pretty cool looking rifle, that thing though. But yeah, like I said, that's one of the annoying things I found with the what do you call it, the L1A1 bayonets. They're not particularly good bayonets, but people want so much money for them that I'm like, I can't even justify that to put on my FAL, spending like 200 quid for like a shitty condition bayonet that's a bit of a crap bayonet to begin with. Yeah, so saying it's kind of just like a semi-automatic World War II rifle, isn't it? A bit like a G43 sort of thing looking at it. Oh, so it was a section you made to fold up around the crotch. Yeah, as I was saying, yeah, because what you don't want to do is pierce the layer, because then your CBRN suit's a bit useless if you've done that. You could have probably done, like the things not like suspenders or braces, but there'd probably be a certain thing you could do like that, like a clip-on kind of like little belt thing. Yeah, the problem is, Saint, with that SLR, I wouldn't want to sell that, but there's a problem with the SLR that I've said before. So, the SLR is not old spec deact, but it's the spec we had before the current much more bastardized spec. So you can grandfather them and keep them, but legally, to sell it, I would have to pay to have it re-deactivated first. Yeah, sometimes, Mike, I think it's just little kids spamming. So I sometimes get ones where it's like somebody calls you like poopy head or ugly, and you block them, and then another account comes along like 2 minutes later with the same insults. Now and again I get that, but that's it. Like, and I've had a couple of people I've blocked that have commented for a while just because they kept saying stupid stuff enough times I was just getting fed up with it. You know, a bit like you've had with certain people, where like you give them the benefit of the doubt for long enough, but tell them they're being a bit annoying, and then they keep doing it. So you think, fuck it then. If you know, you can't just take a hint and just be nice, you know, every time you chat with people, if you have to keep making stupid remarks every now and then. Again, if it's a gun that you could resell for a lot more money, it's not too bad, is it? But that's the problem. It's with some of them, you think, is it worth paying that for something where you'd then only be able to sell the gun for 300 quid sort of thing? And like I said, the thing with, like, again, like the FAL is I don't want to sell the FAL anyway, but it's one of those sort of things that, you know. Oh, I did spot, I can't remember what I said about this, I did spot my M7 bayonet not too long ago. Now, where did I put that? 1 second, because for Kevin's interest, I was going to measure that compared to the M7 bayonets lug for the, like, things that go on the more modern rifles, like the AR style rifles. There it is. I still haven't found my fucking FS knife that I used to have, like, laying on the desk for ages. Right, so comparing the lug size, Kevin. Oh, that is nearly identical. So I'm pointing these towards my eyes, which probably isn't a good idea. Yeah, if I take the scabbard off of that one. Yeah, the lug size is basically identical on those two knives. If I can line them up again. So that lug, you could probably, if you got a tang, one of these tangs, and put on the back of that, and put it at the right distance, yeah, and the tangs are almost the same distance. Yeah, if you were just doing it at the tang, you could definitely fit this to an AR, because they're close enough. Because like I said, the actual circle size, when I tested it on a couple of my rifles of this, it fit over the flash hiders absolutely perfectly, the ones that take the M7. I think I actually put quite a sharp edge on this. I think this came with quite a sharp edge, but I actually genuinely like this as a knife, the M7 and the M4. Because it's like that kind of, it's a fighting knife that acts as a bayonet kind of thing with the M7s. Again, this isn't a real one, it's a replica. But it's a replica as in a fully functional replica that, you know, clips on the rifles it's meant to go on kind of thing. It's just not a proper US one. Yeah, like I said, these are the M4, M7 bayonets I really like because they're just genuinely, and the M4 bayonet is the exact same blade, just designed to fit a different rifle because it's the M1 carbine, but it's the exact same blade with just a different handle. Yeah, and like I said, I haven't got an M9 replica, but I can understand why people didn't like the M9 if it was much heavier and had the wire cutter on, you know, and then it's less useful as a knife, whereas this is just a genuinely, like, good fighting knife that goes on your rifle. Yeah, like I said, if with one of these I was able to easily take all this off without risking cracking it, I would actually see about that. But like I said, the problem is with this is that how they've fitted the things on. If you had one and like tried to take it all apart and then hammer the bits off, I reckon they'd break and you wouldn't get them back on. So like I said, if you get one like yours, where you were looking at one that's just literally like the blade and the tang, where you could fit your own like woodwork around it or whatever else, that would be perfect. Yeah, because from what I understand, Devon, the M9 is that problem of making it a bit more like an AK bayonet, where, yes, you can use it as a wire cutter and whatever, but it's nowhere near as good as a proper set of wire cutters for wire cutting. It's heavier. Apparently, even though it's heavier than an M7, it's actually more fragile. Like, apparently, it breaks easier. I don't know why, but apparently they had issues like that. Oh, Devon, where did I get that? I can't say because of YouTube policies. It wasn't a gun site, though, that did that. Those M7 bayonets and the M4 bayonets. The M4 bayonets, just to show people, it's this one. Like I said, it's the M1 carbines one. The same scabbards fit on both. They're essentially an identical knife. It's just that this one, see, it's got the 30 carbine sized like muzzle brake kind of thing to go on. But otherwise, it's the exact same bayonet, essentially. I actually prefer the handle of this one. The other one is a better anti-slip handle, but I do like either the stack leather or the stack wood style handles of the M4s. See, this one I've actually really sharpened the back and the front up on this one because I've got this like an actual fighting dagger. Yeah, this one wouldn't, because like I said, it's the same blade, but it's designed for a different rifle. I imagine the length is actually probably the exact same on the handle as well, but I have no idea, I'm afraid, Saint. But yeah, like I said, it's listen, Kevin, yeah, I reckon if you get one with the blade blank like that, because the muzzle brake size, whatever you want to call the like ring bit, like that ring bit, because that is the exact same size or close enough within like a little millimeter that you could either sand the inside to make it slightly wider if you needed to, or just put like a little bit of tape on the inside or whatever to make it narrower. That would be fine. Then, like I said, yeah, because the length is right, you could just, yeah, try and make the sort of pommel clip that's on the US style bayonets and just put that on the back, and then, yeah. What's made out of Soviet scrap? I can't remember if it was the AK bayonets, but I know one of the Soviet knives was actually a poisonous type of metal. And it caused problems because soldiers would open ration cans with it, like, you know, puncturing down and doing that. And if little flakes of the metal got in your food, it would poison you because it wasn't just like a standard stainless steel. It was some sort of like toxic metal, you know, because, oh, comrade, just use that one. It's cheaper. So, yeah, like, again, that's another classic Soviet thing of just design something that's fucking stupid because it's cheaper. Am I wearing knives? I don't know if it was lead coated. I don't think it was lead, but it was, or mercury, but it was some sort of metal that was like, you know, dodgy. If I was wearing knives, I'd have to do it V for Vendetta style with all of the knives. Oh, that's made all that fall over now. I've gone for this one. Oh no, I don't want to open you up before you're out of the sheath. Come on, you bastard. Come on. Yeah, because we're on about, say, V for Vendetta style knives. Like, yeah, one of these. So I have to have all these all over me. Like Blackbeard with flintlocks, but just with various knives all over me. Yeah, this should be a good project, Kevin, because like I said, they are really nice actual bayonet blades on those. I don't know yet. Maybe it was that their rations were actually poisonous and they blamed it on the knife. It is soldiers' fault for eating bad ration with wrong knife, comrade. Cannot be fault of ration. Stupid Mobic. Oh, sounds very nice. A vampire, but yeah. So like I said, this one, you can see the pommels taken on like the kind of rust patina. And I don't dislike that because it's not actual rust, but you can see where that's kind of weathered itself more. You know, but this is the wire wrap there isn't actually kind of going rusty, which is nice. Okay, so the old Soviet ones are better, is what you're saying. Funnily enough. But why does that not surprise me with modern Russia that they don't even build stuff as well as the Soviet Union? But yeah, like I said, this is pretty fucking lethal. Because again, it's just a giant dagger. It is very sharp. Yeah, you'll see Ivan, Russian, yeah, I'll do it in the voice. You'll see, Ivan, AK bayonets are impossible to sharpen because the Russian steel is strongest. It is made of stalinium, man of steel metal. Yeah, again, and yeah, I've just spotted where my blue snowball is. But like I said, the thing is with streaming is like on the PS5, you can't really use one of those Yeti type mics. So you probably could, but it's a lot of a ball ache. And like I said, the mic I used to have mounted on the desk, the actual mounting bracket arm for it broke. So the mic's still fine, but that's why I've just been using the headset mic in games because it's just easier. Yeah, Kukri is yeah. Like saying that about Soviet versus Russian stuff, although they're not Soviet, but my really old Vostoks, as in like amphibias from the 90s, even during the fucking 90s, they had really good fit and finish on them. My fucking modern Russian Ratnik Vostok, despite the fact it was completely new, you know, sold off by Quartermaster because why does a Mobic need a watch? They're going to die anyway. With that one, like it was completely unscratched up and that had the stamp from the factory to say it was properly calibrated. The timekeeping on them is absolute shit because you know somebody at the factory basically just sat there doing fuck all and stamped it. Not my problem. Not my problem. Not my problem. I'm not paid enough to regulate watch. Not my problem at work. Maybe like every 1 in 20 watches they'd calibrate it and then they just stamp the rest of that shipment off. Not my problem. Not my problem. Yeah, one of my friends, I imagine they still have it, had a like modern Nepalese made kukri that was really nice. Because there was a company in Nepal that made kukris out of like recycled steel from like trucks and things like that, like leaf springs from trucks, and they were really nice. Like, you know, really fucking well made kukris, obviously made from a really good kind of spring steel from trucks. Yeah, doesn't the V42 actually have some issues with it that the FS didn't have, which is really weird? Because I know there's a later US dagger that is genuinely quite good. But I think when I was talking to somebody, they were saying that the V42 daggers, or whatever they're called, yeah, actually had some issue that wasn't there on the FS. So, like, you copied the FS, and like obviously the blade works fine, but I think it was something to do with how the grip worked or something like that, where they just managed to fuck it up somehow. You're in Cali? All right. Yeah, glad to see you on. Like I said, we just been talking about Geiger counters and that. The time zone you were in was the time zone, not this one. This Geiger counter was originally doing because it was in Seattle time, this one, before I changed the clock on it when it arrived, because the date was right in it. It was right to the minute, just wrong to the hour, because it was like however many hours behind. Because it said, actually, no, it might be a bit further behind than you, because I think it was like 4 or 5 a.m. when I started this stream, and that was only an hour and a half ago. Yeah, I can't remember now. But anyway, it's set to my time now. Yeah, thanks, Obama. So yeah, I will do a proper side-by-side, decent length comparison videos on this same model of Geiger counter using the different thing. Yeah, because again, that's the thing with the FS knives, why they've got like the ribbed or similar to the US, like that US M7 bayonet. The 800. The 800 is kind of their modern beta gamma X-ray one. Did your previous comment go through? I don't think it did, Saint. I can't see it. I did see, is it called the 900 when I was looking on their website? They do one like this that has an alpha window on the back. That's pretty cool. But yeah, these, Amazon reduced these again in the UK to like £60. So I bought another one just for doing a comparison video on. Because, like I said, I put Rad Pro on this one and I can't revert it back. And this one's the stock firmware. So I'll do a comparison of Rad Pro versus the stock firmware. But personally, I think the stock firmware is pretty good on these. Like I said, I've put it to the orange, like orange, yellow, black look. So it looks quite like the gun turret from Aliens. You bent the tip? Oh, dirty boy. Which is the old digital camcorder one? The one I bought from Hype years ago. Potentially, but again, it might take me a while to find it, because bear in mind, this is the problem with a load of that shit. It's when I find it. Oh, good news. When I bought that plug Hype said about, the 5-volt 2-amp one, since I've got that, the the recording box worked perfectly on the not NVT, the ADN VG14P2. So yeah, I should be able to record videos when it's dark again with that now, no issue. Because yeah, that was apparently what the problem was. The problem was that yeah, even though it's just a USB-C port on it, you have to have a 5-volt 2-amp plug or it doesn't charge it up properly. You know, where it can give you a false battery level and all that. But it's essentially just really low on battery and fucks up because it's low on battery. Because it's obviously designed not to burn out on a higher power charger. And nearly all modern USB-C cables for modern phones are built to be a faster charge rate. Yeah, like I said, the annoying thing is I don't know where it is. I did have some night visions in some of these drawers that I found again recently, but it wasn't that one. I found my old Pulsar one. I might sell the Pulsar for about 100 quid, but that's a Gen 1 Plus green. And like I said, the Pulsar isn't that great. It's, again, it's good if you want an analog night vision, but Pulsars, for what they are, they're Gen 1 Plus. Gen 1 Plus isn't very good. You want Gen 2 at a minimum, Gen 2 Plus, really. I'm sounding like one of those snobs now. I really do like old Gen 1 night vision for fucking about with, but it's like the tech is so bad in Gen 1. Let me have a look. Custom CSIO SOG knives. So what, Vietnam era sort of MACV SOG ones. Yeah, they look pretty nice if they're the ones that are coming up with like various handles that are like probably as the people wanted them for like their grip and everything like that. That does remind me though, some of the ones I'm looking of remind me of the Israeli commando knife. I've got the reproduction Israeli commando knife, which is this one. Yeah, big bit of dust. Because they've got that same kind of, not like a big pommel on them. So they're kind of like that style Bowie, aren't they? The blade, where it's this one's got the Star of David on. Oy vey! But yeah, so that these are kind of weird weight wise because they're obviously very front heavy because they've not got a pommel on. I suppose the point with that is that, you know, you're going to be shoving that point into somebody and you can't catch your hand on the back of a pommel that's not there. So like I said, that's basically its pommel there where the tang is just flattened on these. Yeah, so they had them exactly as they wanted them, kind of thing. Yeah, like I said, yeah, just where I saw some repro ones of those. Yeah, some of them have this exact style design where they don't really have a proper pommel. They've just got like the flat end like that, which I actually quite like because, like I said, it's weird for the weight profile of a knife having it like that because, like I said, it literally does that in your hand. But it does mean obviously you can thrust it very easily and there's no like slow down from the thrust. I said I haven't used this knife. I need to find where I put my fucking MOD knife years ago. the like British MOD survival knife, like the really, really chunky outdoorsy knife. That, you know, was designed for basically smashing stuff up with knife, because it's such a giant, it's like kind of like if somebody downscaled a machete to be a knife. It's very much, you called it a knife. But yeah, I haven't seen it in years. I know I had it in some outdoorsy kit at one point, because I had taken it out bushcrafting a couple of times when I was actually going into the woods properly and chopping up twigs. You know, I wasn't just wearing it around out in the street, but I did have it in like a bag with some other like stuff like that, so it might still be buried in a bag somewhere. Ah, nice, Mike. But yeah, I'd have to find the MOD knife first, wouldn't I? That's the problem, because like I said, the MOD knife. Yeah, cool, Mike. See ya. If I see you later, I'll see you later when I'm streaming Bloodborne, but I don't know when I'm doing it yet. But if you check Twitch, if you're free at some point, I might be about around 8 p.m, 7 p.m, I don't know. I'll probably have dinner first and then. So yeah, if for anybody watching that has a Twitch account, I'll stream some Bloodborne again tonight, but hopefully I actually see some of you on. So if people in the chat in the US say what's a good time, like 7 p.m. my time or whatever for you. Yeah, I actually, this is the thing, I had a Smith & Wesson field knife and I had the Glock one. And the Glock one, other than the stupid hollow handle, which was so it could fit on the AUG with the adapter that nobody used, yeah, it was actually a really good knife. And you can open beer cans, not beer cans, beer bottles with the Glock knife really easily, which I liked. But yeah, I haven't seen my Glock knife in ages saying that. But yeah, the thing I liked about the Glock knife is it's kind of a no-nonsense knife, isn't it? It's not one of those ones where, oh, we've added all this tactical shit to the handguard you don't need that just kind of gets in the way and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, anyway, I'll probably head off in a minute and go get some lunch. And then, like I said, I'll stream in a couple of hours. So 7 p.m. from now. How long till 7 p.m? I know I can work it out in my head, but I can tell you the exact amount of minutes. 3 hours and 45 minutes from now. So I might start streaming 7 p.m. UK time on Twitch. And I'll link people to my Twitch again so they know what where I'm on about. So hang on, Twitch. Because again, the problem is if nobody comes on, I've got nobody to talk to during the streams. But like I said, the problem is I can't really stream. Can you see on? I was just looking on my home thing because I did stream Bloodborne last night. If there's a way of seeing your old streams on there, or do you have to do something specifically on Twitch to make your old stream show up? Yeah, so there's so many things I want to find to sell to make money. But like I said, until more stuff sells and I can dig deeper into storage boxes, it's pretty fucking hard. Do they sell horse semen knives as well? Like they do, because apparently Glock did that, and I know that's a meme that's never gone away. What's it begins completed? Got it. So I have to reach 50 followers on Twitch, and I'm at 14. Get 5 people chatting at the same time. I've only had one of 5 because everybody would go off before the next person come on. Because like I said, I would like to monetize Twitch potentially for the fact that, you know, I can at least then, you know, but yeah, I need to get a lot more viewers as a path to a partner and all that. But like I said, I don't, because I do have enough people on YouTube that if enough of them came over to Twitch, I could get that quite easily. But yeah, anyway, if you want to watch me on Twitch, that will be Twitch at 7 p.m. UK time. So then work it out in your current things. And I'm just going to be streaming more Bloodborne. Yeah, Gaston Glock died quite recently, didn't he? Gaston. But yeah, but like I said, I'll be streaming Bloodborne because I like Bloodborne. Bloodborne's fun. And, you know, it's a shame that that never got released on PC, you know, where Sony let some of their other IPs go up on PC. Because Bloodborne is probably one of my favourite From Soft games playing it, along with the original Demon's Souls, which again was never on PC. But for whatever reason, yeah. But Bloodborne, what I like in Bloodborne is there's actually a dungeon mode, which I didn't realise before I started playing the game. So you've actually got a mode in Bloodborne where if you don't want to just be playing the main game properly, you can just kind of do like randomly generated dungeons to get like, you know, like level up and like get equipment and stuff like that, which is pretty cool because like in a lot of the FromSoft games, you can get to that stage where you just kind of get stuck. All right, okay, Hype, I'll stay on a bit longer. I was literally wrapping up now. But yeah, I will stay on a bit longer because you've come on. Yeah, like I said, annoyingly with Twitch, my friend said, because he tried to watch last night, he says you have to make an account to watch on Twitch, at least in the UK. He goes, this video might not be appropriate for all ages, so you have to log in. But yeah, I was just saying to other people on Stream Hype, this turned up today. And I will do a comparison thing, because again, I actually quite like the stock firmware compared to Rad Pro on these. Yeah, like I said, I could just fucking stream. I used to be able to stream PlayStation to YouTube, but the problem is now, like, either Sony or YouTube with their spaghetti code have fucked that up. So the integration doesn't work properly. Each one is like, oh, you're waiting for the other one's permission, but each one's like, oh, you've ticked everything, you know, it's fine. But then you go try and go, and it goes, oh no, you need to agree to all the terms of service and everything else. It uses a Chinese one. I think it says on the page for it which one. It's one of the standard Chinese glass tubes. Hang on, it might actually tell me on the menu because you can do a thing where it tells you the Geiger tube. It's J321, apparently, is the default one these use. So J321 Geiger tube. So yeah, the ones that cost about £12 each. The thing is, the funny thing about that tube is it's in loads of the Chinese Geiger counters, and lots of the crap Chinese Geiger counters are just the fact the firmware's crap. Because I think it's probably a J321 on this one as well. Like I said, with the Rad Pro firmware on, this is genuinely a good Geiger counter. But prior to that, has really slow response times. But it's not the tube; that's just the firmware on it. This is a Chinesium improvement of a Soviet design. This one. I see it. It's very responsive. I know we were on that one, but let's set that to microsieverts per hour so we can compare the reading. Check I've got that. Couple of gates of tube. So that's saying what, about 139 is it microsieverts, 140. I've got the Fiestaware plate, hang on. Yeah, with this one. Tube's on that side. See what that's reading it. Oh, it's setting one of my other alarms up over there. Yeah, this one is actually quite good, but again, it's with that belt clip, it's quite hard to get that as flat against the case. Yeah, I'm aware there's radiation. Thank you, Geiger counter. Yeah, okay. Right, yeah, let's get the Fiestaware plate then. Oh, Doghood Geiger counter. Oh, exciting. Radiation. Yeah, Fiestaware plate then. Right, so on the Rad Pro one, I need to change this from CPS to the other thing. On the Rad Pro one, do I have to... Oh, on Rad Pro, you have to change it, don't you, in the measurements mode, which is kind of annoying. Right, Sievert. Okay, there we go. So this one on Sievert, they don't want a cumulative dose. I want the active dose, instantaneous. That's this one, isn't it? Yeah. So this one, with Rad Pro on.
17.68 microsieverts per hour.
So it's jumping around a bit around that. It's like 15 to 20, basically.
0.859 microsieverts per hour.
Yeah, I'm acknowledging the alarm. Fuck off. Right, okay, now let's try it with the stock firmware one on the GQ 800. Yeah, and then with this one, Yeah, we can read it, but yeah. If I put these two flat next to each other, hang on, I'm just kind of interested in this. Yeah, all the ticking in the background. Yeah, the plate is slightly angry, and people used to eat off of these. So if I put this here like that, put this, tell you what, if I see if I can get both of these kind of roughly in the same place. So the Geiger tube on that one is there. So I have to put them this way up so they both
7.1 microsieverts per hour.
16, 18, 24, 26.
15.8
For some reason, this new one is more sensitive for whatever reason. That's doing 26. Oh no, that is doing 26 now.
0.04 microsieverts
It's
per
probably
hour.
just some of the bits of the plate are spicy than other bits.
16.89 microsieverts per hour. 12.72 microsieverts per hour.
Yeah, there we go.
18.91 microsieverts per hour.
You can't see them very well. I don't like that. Yeah.
1.265 microsieverts per hour.
Now wait, let's put the Fiesta wear back. Yeah, you gotta eat off your radioactive dinner plate, son. Make you big and strong. Yeah. Although, again, the thing that annoys me, like I said, the model I've got is with that is the fact it always reads out Rontgen, despite the fact you can't put that bloody unit in Rontgens. Some of them you can switch to Rontgens, but not the particular one I got from you. So that's the funny thing, is like the voice will keep saying the reading in Rontgen, even though the screen says microsieverts, and you can't change it. So, like, Thank's voice that's just annoying me because of the fact it's giving me, like, a different number. So it's kind of like you're reading, like, 10, 12, and it goes, like, 7. Well, I wouldn't do that because it will actually be kind of doing it to a ratio of 1/10, roughly, with the Rontgen. But still, it's that kind of messages held for review. Hang on. John said he found a toilet that was hotter than Fiestaware in an abandoned building, got permission to poke around, nothing like a little testicular cancer for fun. That's very strange. Any idea why a toilet was really radioactive? Had somebody been flushing radium down it? Because, like I said, I know there's been some horrifying things in the US where some of the old radium companies literally poured the fucking radium paint stripper stuff down the drains rather than properly, you know, disposing of it as nuclear waste. Oh, it was glazed with uranium oxide. Suppose, okay. That's makes your toilet shiny, was it? Was that the reason? Because if you want to see one of these, so I'll get the original one out with radium aircraft dial. I think it's because it makes the paint look nice. I think that is legit the reason they chose to do that. They thought it made the paint look nice, so, you know, why not do it? But, yeah. Yeah. So, I think, Kevin, yeah, somebody put the radioactive Walmart shrimp into a dodgy curry, and then, oh no, sir, I am shitting everywhere, sir, in this toilet, very radioactive, sir. Yeah, but also because they probably wanted all the stockpiles of uranium, didn't they? Because there's like an interesting but sad thing about that. So when all the radium quackery stuff started, Marie Curie wasn't able to get enough radium for her own experiments because although she discovered the fucking element, she was priced out by all the companies buying the radium up to put in dodgy health products that, you know, that then cost stupid amounts of money for people to buy. So yeah. The person that discovered radium got outpriced, you know, from actually doing stuff with radium because of the fact that all the people are like, oh, radium, great. This sounds like something we can market as like a health tonic or something you like radioactive suppositories and whatever else. Right, have a good time at work, Vamp. Like I said, I'll head off fairly soon, then I'll stream on Twitch, 7 p.m. UK time. So, yeah. But like I said, yeah, I genuinely do like these. Like I said, radio codes, if you're spending a bit more, are better as just an all-round radiation detector, but I still like these for what they are. Yeah, I see what hype means now. Like, it's like an old workshop thing where click, click, click in the background. I would have definitely wanted something like that, John, for use when I was like testing stuff, you know, to see how radioactive it was. Yeah. Radium slop cost way more money to make. Actually, saying that, did it hype? Because the thing is with AI slop is some of it costs a lot of money to run those data centers to make. Yeah, because there were some of those, weren't there, where they put a little bit of radium in the water each time you poured the water through it or some shit like that. Like, so the idea was it had kind of soluble radium in a bit like a Brita cartridge. And then every time you use the water pitcher, you put a bit of radium in that water to drink. You know, make your bones turn into fucking powder. Wow, what a great health thing that is. Like I said, I've got the cool one. Is I can't remember if I put the sample from this in its own thing. Oh no, the sample's still in there. I can. Static master brushes, where they used to put polonium in a brush because it would get the static off your stuff better. But this doesn't work now because obviously it's gone through so many half-lives, this polonium, that yeah, so the polonium is underneath this grate here, so let's get that off. I don't think it's like slight. What way does this slide off? Yeah, that way. So the polonium is that bit there, so it looks really boring. But polonium, because it's a really strong alpha emitter, but otherwise doesn't do much. And this has had so many half-lives at this point. Well, I mean, it sterilized the water, but the problem is it would also, once it breaks off, because again, if it was a sealed source that did that, that's kind of all right. The problem is that radium gets into the water, and that was what the product was designed to do. So yeah, when this loads up, we'll put the little bit of polonium there, but despite the fact polonium is like scary when Putin uses it, it's really boring in this because of how many half-lives it's had. Yeah, so there we go. Let's make this beep again if we can. There we go. So, behold the power of polonium. It's not interesting. See, it's a little bit higher. You're hearing a couple more counts, but... Yeah, exactly, John's life. You could get colitis or Crohn's without getting colitis or Crohn's. So yeah, this is like double background. Because like I said, the polonium on this is so old now, it's not very interesting. But I still bought one because of the novelty of it. We have a radioactive dusting brush in the US. These, I think, were scarily radioactive though when they built these. But again, polonium has quite a short half-life. So, yeah, I've got colitis. So yeah, it's don't want to give it yourself on purpose. But yeah, it's like I said, that's the thing with yeah, so the logic, which is really weird, they use those brushes, which kind of makes sense, is because of how alpha particles destatikize stuff or whatever. What it would actually do is the brush was really good, I think, like you get generating its own static electricity. So that brush, it was for vinyl records and things like that. The polonium would constantly make the brush like have, you know, a bit like you can have negative ions and not like the stupid radioactive negative ion pendants, but the actual like air ionizers for you know, like removing dust from stuff. It worked like that. So it would constantly irradiate the brush, which would then generate a static charge. So when you dusted your records, all the dust would stick to that and wouldn't fall back off. So then you'd go outside and shake it or whatever, or rinse it under a tap. But yeah, it actually works scientifically, but it's just crazy to me. Let's put polonium in a dusting brush because it collects dust better. But again, the 50s were fucking crazy with this shit. I love it. Yeah, again, Kevin, like this, do you know, this is the really funny thing. That was what the FDA was set up for in America, the Federal Drugs Association, whatever it is, like the food enforcement people. It was set up because, funnily enough, not because people were getting horrific cancers and dying from this radioactive stuff, but lots of the companies were claiming to put radioactive stuff and then cheaping out and not doing it. And that's why the FDA apparently was set up, the Food and Drugs Association, whatever they're called. Because, yeah, these because these companies were scamming people on the amount of radioactivity they were putting in their health products, the FDA were like, no, sir, you can't say that's a gram of radium in there. If it's only a 0.100th of a gram of uranium, that's a scam, sir. Oh, yeah, like I said, that's why, like, in the Cold War, that everybody just used strontium-90 as the check sources. Because, oh, you got this strontium-90 lying about, why not? Yeah, do you know what the actual reading was you were getting from the thing? Because I'd be quite interested. I know a gram of radium, I think, gives off 1,000 Rontgen per hour of gamma radiation at fairly close range when it's, like, you know, within its first half-life. And that's a full gram, and it wouldn't be a full gram in that, because a full gram was what they used to use in old chemotherapy stuff, where, you know, it was in a proper lead pig, and it had tweezers to, like, take it out. But yeah, because it was also like a gram of radium they used to normally calibrate some of the old CDV ionization chambers. You'd have, like, a bit of radium in a sealed-off kind of cabinet, where you'd put the counter in, you'd, like, close all the lid up, which was all, like, leaded glass and everything. Then using, like, those sort of, like, long-range instrument panels, you'd adjust the calibration knob to whatever you knew the sensitivity was of the, like, massive chunk of radium or whatever you had in the cabinet. Yeah, don't you be shorting me on my radioactivity now, son. I paid good money for this cancer. I am going to be upset if I do not fall apart into pieces. Like, Eben Byers is the guy that fell apart. Hang on. Let's see if I can find a picture of him without his jaw. So yeah, this guy, I'm going to send you two pictures. One of them might be a bit squishy for YouTube, so don't look if you're offended by this sort of stuff. So this is the guy that drank Radia 4 or whatever it was called every day, the radium health drink, because it gave him energy. Oh yeah, that is pretty crazy. So yeah, that's what he looked like before he drank the radium water. This is him just before his death, when he'd been enjoying the benefits of the radium water. Isn't that something, eh? His jaw went the same way of the radium girls, just non-stop in the bones, like strontium-90, turning your bones into basically falling apart powder. And there was literally a headline that, you know, it made him feel good until his jaw fell off or something like that. But yeah, that is the guy that, yeah, was like, oh, drink that radium water, make me feel good. Yeah, there's a reason radioactive quackery was really bad. Of like, oh, radiation is energy, it means it's good for people. No, it's not. It's certainly not. I mean, used in radiotherapy, it's actually good. Used in radio, you know, like radioactive power, nuclear power, it's good. Not good of just let's put some in your body because it probably give you some sort of energy. So yeah, that's what your jaw would look like. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a picture of him I just saw on Google of when his jaw was. Here we go. So this is obviously before his jaw fell off, partway through his radium drinking. This is like his horribly like tumorous face. You know, as it's destroying his face, and then yeah. Like I say, it's like if you look up the radium girls, it's the exact same thing. It's because what the radium did is it obviously just completely destroys your bones and everything like that. I'm trying to find ones that aren't like, oh yeah, here's one of the original ones. Gives you a fucking elephant mansion. Because again, this was from, is this going to fit on YouTube or is the URL too long? Yeah, there we go. 40 Rontgen, fucking out. I would have wanted that. You'd have had to kept it in a proper containment vessel though, wouldn't you? So yeah, it was probably like 1/4 gram of radium or something. Like some of those things. Let me actually ask an AI. I'll ask ChatGPT in a decent research mode. What was the strongest radium health product ever released in terms of amount of radium in it and exposure rates? I'm actually interested in like what the most dangerous of the historical ones was. Because obviously the stuff that you ingest is the most dangerous in that sense because it's inside your body. But I'm actually interested in like, you know, what the stupidest one of just like, well, this is 100 rank gun. You just put it next to you and it's your 100 rank gun pillow. It gives your brain a nice tingle while you sleep. Gives you good dreams. Probably the Radian Doctrinator, sold in the 20s. It is a small gold-plated device containing radium-soaked material that users were instructed to directly strap against the body over various endorchine glands. The surviving examples documented by ORAU reportedly measured about 200 millirontgen an hour on contact before its radium source was removed. And there's some other ones it's got on here. I'll ask, what about the radium water pitchers? Yeah, because then it turns to dust that you can inhale, and then the alpha particles get inside your body and turn you into Eben Byers. Especially the Revigator. They were ceramic crocks lined with uranium radium-bearing ore. Water was left in them overnight, so radon generated by the ore would dissolve into the water. The instructions then encouraged drinking several glasses per day. What is interesting is that they generally were not remotely as externally hot as something like the radio, as early Reviginators were only about 15 microon hour radiation above background at 1 foot. It's because it wasn't meant to be used externally. But yeah, I'm sure there are hotter ones, like you said, because knowing how radium works, I would not be surprised if I mean, I wish I had a private nuclear reactor, but sadly we don't live in that world. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like with the stuff I've got, like, again, people have bitched about this, but all the stuff I've got, like the samples I normally use in videos, are properly sealed check sources. They don't leak anywhere. So as soon as you put them away, that's it. They're fine. Like the stuff where I've got flaky radium paint, like this is the only one that I actually keep out because it's got the intact glass seal. So even radon doesn't leak out of this because it's like a proper airtight sealed thing. And you can see the radium paint isn't flaking off this one. But all the ones like this I've got where, you know, the radium paint's flaking off, they're locked in a fucking safe with lead in it, you know, in like sealed bottles or whatever. Because, yeah, that's the scary thing with some of the radium painted watches and dials, is the radium paint chips off, turns to powder, and then you can inhale it or ingest it. And then you've got that shit inside you. And like I said, when it gets into the body, it doesn't just pass through your digestive tract and leave. Your body thinks it's like other minerals and puts them in the bones or other parts of your body or the thyroid or whatever else. And then that stuff is in your body, constantly blasting you with radiation for years. And normally you die before that naturally leaves your body. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people, it's like the asbestos and all gas mask filters. A lot of people just do not realize that this stuff, you know, is kind of dodgy as fuck. One of my friends said in their charity shop they found an old German clock they imagine was radium painted, but he didn't get back to me when I said, "Oh, how much do you want for it?" Because I was like, "Oh, that looks a nice clock." Yeah, Alabama cleaned his cousin fucker with access to a private nuclear reactor. Yeah, I mean the sheer amount of mini Chernobyls you'd be getting. Yeah, I mean, again, I think you could have like small what you call them, not RTGs, but, you know, the modular nuclear reactors. I think you could probably have those for every village. You know, just have them properly sealed off with like an armed guard around them at all times. Again, that'd be a job I'd do. I would happily, if they wanted to power our village using a modular reactor, you know, my local area, be a guy who stands guard around it, or just stands guard around it with a dosimeter, you know, going around taking readings and jotting them down. That would be a good job. I'd like that because you're doing something you love. They didn't like the Geiger count offered to give the box to me. No, do not want. No. Yeah, why are you coming in here, Sonny, with one of those clicky things? There's nothing in here that's setting it off. But yeah, I have seen some videos of people going around antique shops with like Geiger counters, and sometimes they just go crazy. For me, that would be like, yeah, grab that, grab that, grab that. But yeah, anyway, I'll be off now because I've been on over 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes. So right, if people want to watch me tonight, 7 p.m. UK time, I'm going to stream Bloodborne, but it will be on Twitch. So I've linked my Twitch a couple of times. I'll link it again, because the problem is that on Twitch, often you don't get many people chatting. So I'm just sort of sat there with nobody to talk to. But if there's at least one person on having a bit of chat, that's good. Like I said, people can bring up politics on there if they want, just as long as it's not stuff that will get me banned from Twitch. I'll have the PlayStation webcam on. I'll have the headset on with a microphone. And we can just have a chat, have a laugh, like Mike used to do when he used to stream games on Twitch. Because I'm enjoying playing Bloodborne, and if I can have a chat with people while playing it, that's all the better. But like I said, annoyingly, it used to be able to stream from the PlayStation to YouTube, but for some reason that feature's broken at the moment. And no matter what I do, I can't get it to work. But enough other people are having the issue when I Google it that I think it's either Sony or YouTube that have updated something with spaghetti code, you know, slop code. And it's just, yeah, broken. So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a good day. And yeah, I will be doing videos in the next couple of days, doing a proper, like, longish video comparing these two and sort of the pros and cons of them and whatever. I'll turn them all off now to save battery. They turned the power and off music off on the ramp. I don't like that. And then what else was I going to say? Yeah, so I'll be on streaming later, 7 p.m. Twitch. And yeah, then I also want to get a gas mask video done on the Fushida gas mask. I'm hoping in the next couple of days I've got a day where I'm alone in the house for like an hour so I can just easily film it. Because if I want to, you know, gas the bathroom out, I can't really do that if other people might want to use the toilet. So, yeah, that's that. And catch you all hopefully later, 7 p.m. on Twitch. If not, I'll see you another day for a stream. Right, bye, everyone.